Now the color we're going to dry brush on is just going to be a light version of the dirt. So the recipe I'm going to use is 1 part of the dirt colored paint to 3 parts of white paint. So there's my dirt color, and there's my white color right there. Okay. Be sure you mix it up good, because you think that, oh my gosh, that's a lot of white. It just, but once you mix it, that brown, that dirt color really will start coming through. Now we're going to dry brush this color onto the stones. An important thing that you need is probably a 3/4 inch wide soft bristle brush. Be sure that it's a soft bristle brush. It'll do a much better job. This one here's a 3/4. But it's a little bit stiffer bristles, and I don't know if you can really tell by looking at the video. These bristles seem just like a little bit larger in diameter size, and these are much finer one. These are much softer. The softer one will do you a much better job on this, because we're trying to get the dirt and the grains to kind of come out of the surface. So what we're going to do, like we always dry brush on the instructions, we're going to get some paint on the brush, and we're going to wipe all of it off. So what you're going to do is you're going to go back and forth, and you want to get almost all of the paint off. I'm kind of painting a little further down on here, and I'm still getting paint off the brush. You want this to be very, very dry. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're just going to very, very lightly go over the surface. When you just lightly brush over it, you shouldn't see anything happening. You shouldn't see any paint going on the surface at all. And as you slowly go back and forth over it, this will start, actually paint will be coming off the brush and actually starting to get there. So what we're going to do, this dry brushing technique is a little different than I usually do. Usually I use wide strokes going over the whole surface. But the problem is this surface has got a lot of dips and valleys and other things that aren't going to get the paint that we need. So instead what we're going to do is we're going to use some little short brushes. We're going to just go kind of straight down and very lightly push down, and then go over one particular surface sort of like that. Can you see that? You see how that actually popped up there? So I'm just going to go over. I'm going to use just little small strokes going over top of it. And I'm not going to use much pressure. You don't want to see much happening at first. But as you go over and over it, you're actually going to see a lot of those details come up. Don't use big old strokes. Use just little, kind of like a stroke. Just kind of a little pokey strokes. Don't jam too hard, because you're gonna force a lot more paint off the brush than what should be there. And I'm just going to go over top and work in little areas like that as I kind of move around. So you can kind of see that's starting to come out there. Now, as the paint kind of goes off of my brush, I can kind of jab just a little bit harder. I don't want to jam too hard, because I don't want it to go all the way down in the cracks. I just want to hit the surface of all of those grains of dirt that are on there. Okay, and I'm going to spin my brush around a little bit and go back and forth. And can you see the difference there? Can you see what that's doing? Now, if I need to pick up more paint on my brush, what I'll do is I'll go back to the paper towel, and I'll pick some of that dry paint up that's off the paper towel. And then I'm going to continue again. Start very lightly after you pick it up off the paper towel, because you don't realize just how much you picked up. So very lightly, small little strokes. Take your time, don't rush through it. If you take your time and slowly build up the paint on the surface, it will look spectacular. You will see all of the rocks, all of the cracks, all of the little details in there if you don't get in a hurry. I can't stress enough to you that don't get in a hurry when you do this. Take your time. And just put on just a little bit at a time as you go across the surface on this. So I'm already in these few minutes that the video has been going on here. You kind of see how this is coming on, and I've still got paint on the brush. I've only picked it up from the paper towel one time, and I'm still going. Okay, so this paint will actually last quite a while, and if you push harder, you will get more paint to come off. But you want to be careful not to get too much paint to come off on there. And I think that's pretty well done. Okay, that is our rock texture that we've got right there. Okay, Let's see if I can get this centered on here. Now, if you notice, the left side was the shoe polish mixture. The right side is what we used with the ink and the matte medium. And honestly, it's really hard to see a difference between the two. The shoe polish one is slightly redder. And this one is, slightly, greener, I guess. Not quite so red. My personal opinion, I like the sepia ink wash and matte just a little bit better. I like it. There's just something about it that just feels more earthy to me. Now, I did want to explain a couple of things about the Dirt and Rock floor tile molds. First of all, we've got an 1.5" square one, and we also have a 1" square one. 1.5" is good for Mage Knight figures and where you want a larger base. And of course, the 1" one is nice for the Dungeons and Dragons 28mm size figures. These tiles are actually a 1/4 inch thick at their highest measurement. In other words, all of the rocks from all of the surface that are on here, they don't stick up a lot, but they stick up enough that you can pick them up with dry brushing. So if you take 1 square and you measure it with a micrometer for a 1/4 inch, that thing, let's see, we'll get it right on there. Yeah, see, it's on the money at a 1/4 inch thick. And wherever you measure it across the top of a rock, it will measure a 1/4 inch thick. Now the valleys are going to move up and down as they go around the rock. So valley to valley, they're not going to kind of meet exactly. So it's going to be, you'll be able to see the grid fairly well on here, but not enough to make it distracting. The other thing that you have to keep in mind is if you're going to use this to put a building on, you can, these are blocks from mold number 40, you can go ahead and stack up and build on these and you have a fairly flat surface. But if you do glue on this surface, be sure that you use a lot of glue because you're going to be gluing to the top edges of those rocks and there's going to be a lot of empty space. So you're going to have to glue it fairly well because you can see that this kind of rocks just a little bit in some areas depending on where you put it down in. So if you intend to glue walls on top of these tiles, you can, but use a lot of glue in order to kind of fill that space so that they will set a little more flat onto the surface. Now I think these tiles are going to work really well for maybe a fighting arena of some kind. This could be the surface of Mars or a surface of a planet. A lot of people want to do outdoor dungeons like the Descent 2nd edition. A lot of areas happened outdoors on the grid that people wanted some outdoor grid for. And Blood Bowl pitches. The 1.5" one works really nice for a Blood Bowl pitch. If you use it for that, you'll have to adjust your templates because a Blood Bowl pitch is actually closer to 1.25 inches. But 1.5" works very well for that, and I think it would make a nice surface for that.